Oh,
Hello, can you hear me?
finally I can see. Yeah, I can hear you and I can see you.
Okay.
Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. No, now I cannot hear. Okay, right. Now, for a moment, I lost your voice. Let's see. Hi.
How are you?
Hello, how are
Hi,
you?
Antonella. Pretty good. Actually, I had, some of you got my mail. I had some trouble joining in. My link wasn't working, and I guess I sent a message to Adrian, and he fixed it.
Ah, okay, super.
So,
I don't think I received your email.
Joined since 3. No, I didn't send it to you. I sent it to Adrian.
Ah, okay. So
And I sent, there were 2 addresses, like one which was a state and the other one was Adrian. And apparently he managed to find what the problem was and log me in.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm
Anna,
sorry because
I'm Christina.
It's nice to meet you. Can you hear me? Because I have
Nice
problem with my. Yeah, nice to meet you, all of you.
Likewise.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Nice to meet you,
Hey,
all
Angela.
of you virtually.
Hello from me.
Hello, Angela. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Super.
So let's try to see if your PowerPoints are working. You all know how to share a screen, right?
Yes.
All right. Done it. So let's, Anna, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'll do that now. Just give me 1 second because my computer is not collaborating.
They never do when they have to.
Yeah, that definitely. So I'm opening up it now, and so
this is the panel queen Zena.
Oh,
nice to meet you, Zena. So I'm gonna try to share my screen and finestra dell'applicazione. Let's see. Does it work?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we got it. Very good.
Okay, even full screen.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Stop share.
Try to move between.
Okay. Yeah, I can try to move again. Sorry.
I was going to say try to move between panels because.
Professor, I think your internet connection is a bit. Your internet
shaky,
connection is not very good. Yeah.
Yes.
So you, there are interruptions.
I'll try moving the background.
Yeah, I think that would be, although it's wonderful and to the point. It's very relevant, but I think, yeah, now you're okay. Yeah, I think.
Much better. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's see. Angela, would you like to check your?
Yes, of course. Share screen. Okay, can you all see it full screen?
To share your directly your don't go to share screen, go to share directly your open PowerPoint so that people don't see your screen and stuff.
Oh, okay. How do I do that?
All right. Yeah. Okay. When you go to share, it will give you a number of options, and it's going to show you your PowerPoint among other options. So you go directly to the PowerPoint.
Okay. Can I try once more to be ready? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and try.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes. Okay.
This means it only opens the program for us, and you're free to do what you want with your screen, and it doesn't affect what we see. Okay. And try to in full slideshow mode. You should put it in full slideshow mode.
So that it will be ready.
Okay. Yeah, try that again. Try that again, please.
Okay, let me put it in full slide. Okay, yeah. But in full slide, I cannot. I don't.
No, not you. Not now. Not now. Go to share. Go to share screen.
Yeah, I did.
All right. Pick your PowerPoint.
Yes, share now. I click on share.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Slideshow from the beginning. Yeah,
Okay.
I did it.
Yeah,
I did it before. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I did the same thing
works.
before. Yeah. I did. I don't think you saw it. Yes, I did it.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Now, do you have printed, or do you need to read it off your screen?
No,
we have your paper printed, or
yeah, I have a printout. Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna. Okay, so you can do the full screen thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Alex,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Just a minute.
I said it's okay. I was just asking Alex to upload his stuff.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And put it also in full mode. Alex, do you have your paper printed out so you can read it?
Yes, I have it
while we're
right
watching
here.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So now you can stop sharing.
Just oh.
You go to your Zoom and you press stop sharing.
That's what I'm trying. The mouse was just flying all over.
All right, good. Now, remember, folks, according to the rules here, you're going to be presenting, and then I'm going to give you 10 minutes for questions. The questions are going to be appearing on the chat. If you can see them, before you answer them, you should read them out aloud, because not everybody can see the questions asked to you. If you cannot see them, ask me, and I will read them out to you. All right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. And
So when we see the questions, we read them and not you.
On to the next person. Now, if you have questions and you can read them,
we read them ourselves.
You can't
yes.
see them.
Okay.
Either Antonella will read them off the Facebook page, or I will read them through the chat.
Okay.
All right. But that's only if you cannot see them. But if you do see them, before you answer them, read them out aloud, please. All right? Are we clear?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we are.
All right. I hope everybody can hear me. All right.
Christina,
yeah, about 5 minutes. If there's any question.
Yeah, just a five minutes, and then we can go. I'll just wait for Adrian to let me know when it's online, when it's recording on Facebook, and then you can go ahead. So I'll just let you know. I will always be with you guys, but I'll put my silence and camera off, so you can concentrate on you.
Thank you very much, by the way, Antonella, for everything.
Not at all. I'm happy to see you, to meet you at last after writing to you.
We hope we can meet sometimes, maybe in the future, and maybe live. And I would have been very glad to come to Madrid, actually, and like next time.
Yeah, I know. I would have been glad too. I mean, I'm not in Madrid, actually. I'm in Germany, so.
Me too. I'm in Berlin, so basically.
So you see. And now you are with the expert moderator, Christina Doku, who's been more or less moderating all our online sessions too.
Thank you very much.
You're very lucky.
With a lot of patience.
You're lucky to have one of the best moderators. Okay, so Adrian has just sent me a message. We are ready to go live on Facebook. All right, so enjoy the session.
Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, I would ask everybody to mute their phones, their microphones when they're not talking, because there is going to be background noise. For example, my cat now is crunching on some keyboards. So after I'm done talking, I'm going to mute my mic, and we're going to go to Anna and get started. All right?
Perfect.
Well, I hope we enjoy this session. Yeah. All right.
So now we're transferred to the main session.
Yes, we are already at the main session. So welcome everybody to this English language session of the Myth and Science Fiction Conference, organized by at the Complutense University, but shared all over the world. I'm going to be the moderator for this panel, Cristina Doku, and with us we have Anna Chiara Corantino, Angela Rubani, and Alexandros Tsiachtanis. We're going to start with Anna Chiara Corradino, who is a PhD candidate at the Universities of Bologna and L'Aquila, and she's working on the myth of Selene, the moon goddess, and her sleepy lover Endymion, as the archaeology of female necrophilia. Very interesting. She has graduated, she has a degree both in classics and in Italian modern literature, and her main research interests are classical reception, culture and gender studies, and the history of ideas. The title of her talk today is Reframing Necrophilia, Afterlife in Greg Daniels' Upload. Anna Chiara, you have the floor, so please upload your
Thank you very much for the great presentation. I will share my screen so that you can all see my presentation, and it should work now. And I would like to thank again everyone, especially Antonella Lipscomb, who was very kind, and for all the organization in this both online and offline conference that has had to take the double of effort. And I will go straight to my talk. So the aim of my talk is to make a brief comparative analysis between Upload, a series produced by Amazon Prime Video and directed by Greg Daniel, and some ancient Greco-Latin myth of female hypogamy, in particular that of Venus and Adonis. This analysis will bring out some common traits that will push us to give a definition of the concept of female necrophilia, which in both cases takes into account the eccentric dominant position of the woman towards an objectified man. At the same time, the redefinition of the boundaries of the underworld in the Upload, thanks to new memory technologies, will bring out even more strong the link between contemporary necrophilic narratives and ancient necrophilic ones. So I would like to start my talk by reading a quick passage by the library of Apollodorus regarding Aphrodite's and Adonis myth. So, in the consequence of the wrath of Aphrodite, for she did not honor the goddess, this Smyrna conceived a passion for her father, and with the complicity of her nurse, she shared her father's bed without his knowledge for 12 nights. But when he was aware of it, he drew his sword and pursued her, and being overtaken, she prayed to the gods that she might be invisible. So the gods, in compassion, turned her into the tree, which they call Smyrna, so the mirror. And 10 months afterwards, the tree burst, and Adonis, as he's called, was born, whom, let's remember this, whom for the sake of his beauty, while he was still an infant, Aphrodite hid in a chest unknown to the gods and entrusted to Persephone. And Persephone decided to not give him back, as we all know. And the case being tried before Zeus, the year was divided into 3 parts, and the god ordained that Adonis should stay by himself for one part of the year, with Persephone for one part, and with Aphrodite for the remainder. However, Adonis made over to Aphrodite his own share in addition. So a second premises will be a very brief summary of Upload content. So in 2033, humans are able to upload themselves into a virtual afterlife of their choosing. When computer programmer Nathan dies prematurely, he is uploaded to the very expensive Lakeview, but soon finds himself under the thumb of his possessive, still living girlfriend Ingrid. As Nathan adjusts the pros and cons of digital heaven, he bonds with Nora, his living customer service rep or angel. And Nora struggles with the pressure of her job, her dying father who does not want to be uploaded, and her growing feelings for Nathan, while slowly coming to believe that Nathan was murdered. There are some key elements that have to be analyzed by making a comparison between sequences of events of Adonis and Nathan. But first, I want to make some brief clarification on how necrophilia is understood in this talk. It is clear that necrophilia, as it is understood today, is the result of the filters of forensic medicine, psychiatry, and pathologization tout court, as a result of a long-distance stabilization of death and of the relationship with it. The term necrophilia is in fact attested for the first time in a forensic medicine treatise written by Joseph Guislon in 1852 to indicate a generic affection with a dead body from the term itself, necrophilia. What distinguishes necrophilia from a generic affection or interest for death is the erotic or sexual desire for a body, and consequently a totally passive object of desire. I will read this little passage by Francine Grosberg, which is really funny actually. So the necrophiliacs frequently mention the desirability of a partner who is helpless, unresistant, and completely at the mercy. The dead lover never rejects caresses and is always available when required, makes no demands, is never unfaithful, and never rejects you. This lover does not compare your lovemaking skills with others, will go along with any sort of kinky sex, and if his things goes too far, cannot be harmed and will never file complaint against you. It could be objected here that in order to make observation on the transcultural conceptuality of necrophilia, it is also necessary to underline how the conception of the body to occur has changed over time. This change is even more radical if we think about the last 50 years. Posthuman studies on contemporary fiction and the impact of technologies in daily life have increasingly pushed us to reconceptualize the body and the relationship we have with it. Above all, the cyborg theory and cyberspace theory are clearly re-evaluating and reinventing the coordinates that for many years have defined concepts such as afterlife, corporality, life, and death. In some way, in the ancient world, the corpse had a status linked in the first place to the more or less established conception of the afterlife, the soul split from the body, but also the numerous nuclei that allow us to consider a relationship leading that well beyond the liminality of the corpse. And these two observations, in fact, lead us to reconsider the very concept of necrophilia as a whole that cannot be restricted to a simple relationship with a corpse, as intended in only a part of the Occidental history, but with dead people in every form of representation during the times. Secondly, I'm convinced that specifically female necrophilia has had and has the narrative function of representing the eccentric relationship between dominant femininity and objectified masculinity. So how we saw in Francine Grosberg text. Lakeview, and in general the concept of an upload in which you can spend the rest of your life, are not in fact new concepts in the panorama of contemporary fiction and imagery. I'm thinking in particular of other very successful series such as The Good Place, and certainly my audience will come up with many others. But above all, one could also think about projects such as Life Note or Ertenheim that allow you to create an avatar through an artificial intelligence that is enriched over time and that promises to do a backup of your digital memory. Not to mention the new social media features that already exist, such as Facebook function of hair and tribute. In some way, all these narratives and programs present themselves as new forms of afterlife and in a religious way, partially using a religious language, which, however, relegates the form of divinity to technology, and the new landscape on which to build social actors are the new gods. For this reason, a comparison with the most ancient mythology is now more urgent than ever, as well as fitting. The studies on digital afterlife are very recent, so many books can be quoted here, and I'm quoting just the last one who was published this year in 2020, and the same authors did another book last year, and the topics are basically very similar, but yeah, not the same. And it is very interesting that both these books can provide with a complete bibliography on the theme. In another recent book, Rachel Wagner writes, both religion and virtual reality can be viewed as manifestations of the desire of transcendence, so the wish for some mode of imagination of being that lies just beyond the reach of our ordinary lives. But it's not only the desire for transcendence that unites the upload of the common desire of survive healthy life with religion, but also the common desire to rebuild a paradise that comes even closer to the paradise imagined by religion, and to integrate the death and the dead, as Philippe Ariès wrote in 1974, that have been put out through practices of exclusion in a good part of history of Western culture. This reintegration, however, bring us inexorably closer to the forms of religion, which were characteristic of the Greco-Latin mentality, and which, in any case, characterized the history of Western culture at times more closely and at times more distantly. As Richard Buxton said in his amazing lecture the day before yesterday, in Greek and Latin literature, he is behind a place not of science and technology, but of the gods and the sacred. And I strongly think that this behind is where the ring closes and starts again connecting technology and the sacred more than we can imagine. The myth of Adonis, as well as that of Endymion and Selene and Eos and Titanus, present a story with a simple structure that closely resembles the great myth of Oriental female divinities. Though we have no space to discuss here the truthfulness of the connections between this myth and the existence of what Bachofen have theorized as the great mother myth, it is enough here, however, to mention the fact that there are some divinities and some mythologies in the Indo-European basin that have common mythical aspects and who present similar stories in which a female divinity always acts on young mortal to grant them with immortality, though resulting in an imperfect immortality that relegates them to eternal passive and missed men. The common features of all of these mortals are their sufficient and necessary passivity and beauty. Indeed, super beauty. Adonis, as well as Endymion, are those effebi formosissimi that were listed by Hyginus in the Fabule as of extraordinary beauty that a goddess falls in love with precisely because they are so beautiful. In the passage I quoted at the beginning by Pseudo-Apollodorus, it is written that Aphrodite, diakalos, that is, because of the beauty of Adonis, decides to take him with her while still a child and send him in the underworld to Persephone in a box. A basic assumption is precisely this interesting diakalos. Beauty, as clearly evident from the Platonic theory of the achievement of beauty in itself and in all forms of Western culture, represents a universal motivator. That is, it is capable of making actions and it legitimizes possession. You are beautiful, so not only do I want you, but I cannot resist wanting you. Similar concepts can be found, for example, in the Latin word fascinum, which acts on the individual like a spell. For this reason, Aphrodite, goddess of love, in turn and more beautiful than the other goddesses, albeit by chance, when she sees Adonis, she falls in love with him, but decides to do something quite unusual. She sends him to the underworld in a larnax, a box. The symbolic components of this passage are quite evident. The only way to ensure that Adonis can become immortal is a second gestation in death. Larnax is clearly a tomb, and Adonis must die to be immortal. Let's stop for a moment at this point. Upload starts with a very interesting image from this point of view. Nathan is at his mother's house for the Thanksgiving, along with his girlfriend Ingrid, whom he's not really particularly in love with. His cousin asks him to play with her, and while they play, Nathan notices a hair out of place that he tries to put back in place, causing the cousin to fall on the ground. From the beginning, Nathan is characterized by a very conscious beauty. It doesn't matter that if he's a skilled programmer, he's super handsome. At his funeral, which he participates in live from the afterlife, his three ex-girlfriends define him as a shark in a sea of fish. He himself defines himself as very handsome and very young, and in more than one passage laments his premature death. Death that, mind you, occurs inside a car, whose symbolic correlation with the tomb is a very widespread rhetorical topos in filmography. Nathan's characterization as super handsome is key throughout the plot. In his being a super handsome, Nathan is in fact highlighting his causality. Causality and objectification, which is also expressed in the relationship of dependence on his mother lover Ingrid, who is the one who pays for his afterlife in Lakeview. Ingrid buys his clothes, showers him with unwanted and unnecessary attention, but she's not the least interested in Nathan as a truly sentient person. At his live funeral, Ingrid proceeds to dress him up like a doll in somewhat awkward clothes, including a very expensive green capsuit that noticeably accentuates Nathan's appearance as an ever-grown child, and spends her time celebrating his outward personality when Nathan is there behind the screen to witness the apotheosis of his objectification. The Adonic connotations of the story don't stop here. Ingrid is clearly chosen as a stereotypical beauty, but also as what we could identify as the new Venus. In fact, we see her taking care of her body in well-known ways such as Botox, cosmetic surgery, that culminates in the most absurd scenes such as the refinement of the shoulders. I'm talking about new Venus precisely because the easy comparison that can be made with the modern symbolic correlates of the term Venus. For example, on a commercial level, Venus brand is in fact linked to beauty products as razor blades or brands of cosmetic surgery that expand the semantic framework of Venus as perfect beauty, adapting it to contemporary times. At the same time, Ingrid manifests all the connotation of a demonic beauty, purged, however, of the femme fatale figure who leads men to ruin as a partially passive beauty. Ingrid plays a very active role in this series. And in Nathan's death, perhaps organized by her to please her father. The active role of Ingrid is, as already said, also justified and fed by the passive connotation of Nathan. Ingrid's behavior also manifests itself as a behavior of what we call the loving and suffocating mother. The concept of the loving mother linked to the figure of Adonis was developed by Alessandro Grilli in his book on the cultural fortune of the myth of Venus and Adonis. In short, Grilli's thesis is aimed at providing how the figure of Venus has both strictly amorous connotations and strictly maternal behaviors, but of a toxic motherhood that inhibits the growth of Adonis, who, by virtue of his premature death, is destined to remain undead and young forever. Even the second gestation by Venus, that sends Adonis still an infant to the afterlife, can be inserted into a general will of Venus to keep the young Adonis forever young, immortal, and above all, infant, object of desire. At the same time, Nathan, precisely by virtue of being an avatar, is not subject to an eternal physical change and remains forever the marble figure of a beautiful young man trapped in the afterlife. When Nathan arrives in Lakeview, he falls in love with Nora, the angel from the afterlife, who escorts him to his experience in Uploaded Paradise. It is really difficult for me not to see in Nora connotations, however positive, that bring her closer to Persephone. For Nathan, Nora is in fact his angel and interface with heaven. The presence of the two women, opposed in many fields, develops the usual literary topos of the love contest. The two women are also physically opposite. Ingrid, blonde goddess of modern beauty, clear and evil, and Nora, the dark counterpart that rules the afterlife, albeit positively connoted. Ingrid's explicitly negative connotation is to be seen as the explication of the suffocating attitude that Aphrodite also had with Adonis, and that emerges in the cultural history of the myth, even more than actually in the ancient tradition. However, we now ask ourselves what changes between the two stories, or rather what the passage from the divine pattern to the new technological form implies. The love that Venus has for Adonis is configured from the first attestation as a loving and erotic desire for a dead man, we can say. In an attempt to make him immortal, Aphrodite sends Adonis in a chest, which is a form of death, resulting in an attempt at immortal reincarnation. As evident in the mythical version that shows Adonis sharing the ear with Persephone, the cyclical immortality of Adonis is nothing more than a dead mortality, and actually Adonis dies then. A brief comparison with the story of the myth of Endymion and Selene, a clear doppelganger of Adonis, will make this statement clearer. The story of the myth of Selene with Endymion tells us the story of the goddess of the moon who falls in love with the mortal shepherd while he sleeps and decides to sleep him in a cave on Mount Latmos forever. And the young Endymion gains even the statutory eternal youth with eternal death. Selene's love is blatantly more necrophilic in the modern sense, so love for a dead corpse, and the common source is clearly the aforementioned Mediterranean basin of mythological stories related to female divinities of the Great Mother type. All these three events can be traced back to a unique pattern that in varying degrees leads the female divinities to have a relationship with a mortal who nevertheless has immortality that forces them in a forever young position. So somewhat paradoxical thing that still unites Nathan with the young mortal Paradros is that in the interaction with Nathan, the two women manifest a form of neonecrophilia, which however is substantiated by the possibility of survival as an immortal avatar. The problem that Nathan is dead is highlighted by the repeated recurrence of doubts, both on the part of Ingrid and on the part of Nora, of being able to establish a relationship, a long-distance relationship with a dead man. And by all the people around who point out that to the women that this relationship cannot work. However, there is no question of what could be the most obvious question. Establishing a relationship with Nathan means establishing a necrophilic relationship in a horizon in which the corpse is deprived of its integrity. Nathan, indeed, is blown up to be uploaded. Augmented reality and uploading seem to be able to overcome the taboo of the relationship with the dead in a way not different from how the narrative of ancient myth did. It has by maintaining an earthly pseudo-corporal identity. In all these cases, immortality and death actually guarantees both a perennial stillness and beauty, the Paradroi and Nathan's avatar, who cannot age, and the possibility of questioning ourselves about the nature of this necrophilic relationship itself. In fact, it seems the necessary condition, and above all, the necessary explanation of the much more intricate relationship between dominant femininity and objectifying masculinity. In all these cases, necrophilia is in fact nothing but explicit and extreme representation of the much more intricate problem of dominant femininity, which manifests itself as a total crushing and reification of the male counterpart. The forms of female neonecrophilia, thanks to new technologies, allow us to bring out the demonic aspect of femininity foreseen in the ancient narratives of the great female divinity, who still feed on the dialectic woman-demon, man, non-viral, beautiful, objectified, never grown. Even in a case like that of Upload, in which necrophilia is represented as a soft necrophilia, so to be clear, not a baroque or horror movie, whatever, this is evident and still wait to be studied in depth. And thank you very much for your attention and hope to be on time.
It was very nicely done. Thank you very much, Anna. And now I would invite you, first of all, to turn on your camera, and so that we can see you. And secondly, thank you very much. I would invite now our audience to submit their questions. Now,
I'm going to open the chat.
Any of the panelists have questions for one? Yes, please. If any of the panelists have questions for Anna, you may also submit them. You may turn on your mics and speak.
I hope I wasn't too fast.
Also, Antonella, I don't see anything on the chat.
Yeah, she said she would have turned down.
I don't think so. It was pretty.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, first of all. It was a very nice presentation and the two myths that I love so much. Apart from the possession that you mentioned in the two relationships, Adonis, Aphrodite, and Endymion and Selene, do you believe that in these relationships of mortal-immortal, apart from necrophilia and possession, are there any implications of transcendence? Of the mortal natures of the mortal psyche to something more upgraded, something more elevated than that. I mean, we know that Keats draws on the Endymion myth and very in detail, to talk about art and transcendence. So do you see any of these things in the myths apart from that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So the main point is that the reconceptualization of corporality is the beginning of everything. So the fact that in ancient mythology, clearly, like the body was actually a jail for the soul, it's the main thing that actually correlated with the modern technologies and desire for transcendence. And this desire for transcendence is, from my point of view, a desire that must be connected to a general conception of human soul as actually being able to survive, and that's why I believe that actually representing the human soul as actually corporeal, so being present actually in the afterlife, or being present actually in the upload or whatever, makes actually this necrophiliac pattern, which is not only a clear like necrophiliac as having an erotic exactly the dead body, but still as a necrophiliac intention, we can say. So that's why I believe. I mean, transcendence is the base of everything. So it's the platonic base of all these mythologies as well, like pre-Platonic, we can say. And Endymion as well was represented on the sarcophagi. Has actually I've posted I've used the image of the sarcophagi, except especially for that. So for the fact that basically they were conceived as being able to survive, like to life in another stage, in another form, but is actually, and as a counter question, is actually this transcendence idea just a form of religion, or is actually something a bit more? So that this defying the body, this going beyond the body, has something more in it. So that's my counter question, I can say. And I hope to have answered. If I have not, please just clarify me.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
can I add?
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. I actually wanted to ask something. I have not read or watched Loaded, but if I understand you correctly, there is a privileging of Nora, the Persephone character. And I was wondering if that derives from a perspective of death, not as, let's say, the great evil that befalls all mortals, but Kantian sense as something that gives beauty its meaning, in the sense that, you know, there is a connection between mortality and beauty, in the sense that we find things beautiful because they are ephemeral, because they are, this beauty will pass, therefore we appreciate it even more while it exists. So I was wondering if that privileging of Persephone over Aphrodite, which is what Aphrodite is privileged in the original myth, Adonis gives her the 3 extra months, has to do with, let's say, a more modern sensibility that sees death not in a necessarily all negative light.
I didn't understand the first part of your question because like the line was really shaky. So if you can repeat, please, just the first part. So
Okay.
What about Persephone's?
Sure. All right. I was saying that whether the fact that in Uploaded, Nora, who is the Persephone character, is privileged in the relationship, she's shown partner, has to do with the fact that unlike Greek myth that saw death as the end of everything, in aesthetics since the 17th century, death is seen as a paragon of beauty, in the sense that beauty is even more beautiful because it is ephemeral.
Absolutely.
Consider things more beautiful because we know they're going to die.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is
that's what I meant. So I was wondering if there was a factor in the shift from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think that this part of the sacralization. Sorry, we are overlapping. I'm really sorry.
Go ahead.
This desacralization is like the main component of the exchange between the two figures. So the fact that Ingrid is the bad guy, and that actually Nora, she's the good one. So it's clearly related to a new conception of death that, as you said, it's not just like it's the end of everything, and like in coming back in ancient religion was something related to rituals, to something that we are in a way no more, we can say, no more ritualistic in this. So actually coming back is something that haunts you in a way. So it's better to stay in the underworld than actually coming back, because coming back means basically being a zombie, a ghost, something that haunts you in the night. So I would say yes, that is an evident like change in the sensibility of how we conceptualize afterlife, and how we conceptualize like the positivity of afterlife, or the negativity of the connections between afterlife and life, I would say. So absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other comment or question anybody would like to pose? I'm not seeing anything on the chat yet, and Antonella hasn't forwarded anything. So I guess we can, if there is no further question, we can stop right now and move on to the next speaker. But if any questions or any points come up in the course of this session, we can go back and you can pose those questions to Anna. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you very much for your questions, both of you.
Angela. Thank you very much. We go on to Angela Rubani, who holds a BA in photography and visual arts from the University of West Attica, and a BA in English language and literature from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. She is currently wrapping up her MA studies in the program, the Greek element in Anglophone literature and culture, in the Faculty of English Language and Literature of the University of Athens. So the title of her talk today will be Modern Pygmalion's Cyborg Sameness and the Delusion of artificial felicity in Ira Levin's The Stepford Wives. Angela, you have the floor and you may upload your presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Doku, for the introduction. And I would also like to thank the organizing committee for having me here today. So I'll start right over. Ovid's Pygmalion myth, a case in point regarding artificial human life creation, stands at the meridian between modern concerns with the automaton, the cyborg, and artificial intelligence on the one hand, and concerns about art and ethics on the other. Pygmalion's story, an allegory for the significance of art as creative force, underscores the benefit of this creativity for both the creator and community. Ira Levitt's 1972 novella, The Stepford Wives, tackles a variation of the Pygmalion theme as it describes the murder and replacement of actual women with fembots that fulfill the sexist fantasy of the perfect suburban wife. However, it has been mostly analyzed from a feminist perspective, in particular, quote, as an important cultural document of second wave feminism, end of quote. This paper reads the novel, as well as its two film versions, as a traumatization of a ill-nurtured society due to the husband's perversion of humankind through the scientific creation of life in juxtaposition to the Pygmalion myth, in which social balance and prosperity are eventually achieved through natural procreation. In The Stepford Wives, Levin casts a critical eye upon artificial creation fueled by the murder and then scientific reconstruction of the women as gorgeous cyborg homemakers. The survival of the Stepford suburb is constantly undermined by its murderous technologies, though, and its idyllic linearity is begging to be disrupted by the two female protagonists, something that eventually happens in the 2004 film version, suggesting an interrelation between such scientific creation and civil unrest. Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, begins his myth by depicting a pre-existing civic and social unrest. The city of Amathus is a cursed and disreputable one, and its citizens are ill-mannered due to the violation of the divine laws of hospitality, having sacrificed a guest. Venus realizes that the city is not to blame, for it is human action that disgraces it. Thus, she curses the citizens with the words, "I'll show them as they are," turning the men into stupid roaring bulls and the women into shameless hedonists. Since the latter, quote, could not blush, their faces paled. It was no wonder that they turned to stone, end of quote. The introduction to the Pygmalion myth clarifies that human perversion and civil unrest comes as a result of intervention in the natural cycle of human life with the act of murder, particularly the murder of an innocent who comes into the society from the outside in the same manner the Stepford victims do. The daughters of King Properties, the propetides, whose demeanor matches perfectly with their name, since the word propetis in ancient Greek characterizes a reckless and insolent person, quote, were young girls originally from Amathonta who denied it Aphrodite's divinity. The goddess inflicted them with desires which could not be satisfied. They became the first prostitutes and ended up being transformed into stone, end of quote. According to Ovid, the goddess punishes the notorious women by removing the blood from their cheeks and stripping them of their face expression. If blood on human cheeks represents facial emotion in this case, thus an actual token of life, then the propetides inexpressive face marks their non-living state, similar to the inexpressive face of the female cyborgs in the Stepford Wives. The Amathus men suffer a different yet not a better fate, since they are transformed into bulls. Thus, Ovid's insinuation that the city of Amathus has turned into a sort of Sodom and Gomorrah, since Venus's divine curse perverts both men and women's sexuality, depriving them of their self-control, indicates that human procreation and familial bonds in the city cannot follow a natural process. Quote, in the 1st century CE, following the influence of Stoic teaching, the emphasis shifted increasingly from control of others to self-control. It was a common belief that a man could control himself much better than a woman, so inability to exercise control made a man effeminate, end of quote. According to the ancient Greek tradition then, Pygmalion would stand as the ideal masculine model by retaining his self-control, a virtue of masculinity that is closely related with civil order, whereas the Stepford husbands' lack of self-control, due to the murders they commit to satisfy primarily their insatiable sexual appetite, identifies them with the bestial Amathus men. The destruction of the, quote, manly ideal, which included marriage, fatherhood, and estate management, end of quote, was regarded as the basis of civilization and prosperity in ancient Greek society. Therefore, an additional reason for the disruption of civil order is the inability of the Amathus men to ensure their heritage due to the haphazard identity of their biological children, born of hyper-masculine men bulls, sowing their wild oats upon nymphomaniac women. Joseph Roisman contends that, according to the Greco-Roman tradition, self-control and moderation were associated with civic attributes such as good reputation and civic orders, whereas a lack of restraint was regarded as a source of danger to other men, their values, and their institutions. It is not stated by Ovid whether the men's transformation into bulls is literal or metaphorical. In either case, the men's lack of self-control results in civic anarchy due to the loss of soprosemi, that is, continence. Subsequently, human continuum and social harmony are presented at stake for ill-nurtured societies, such as the city of Amathus and the Stafford suburb, due to the men's inability to exercise their self-control. Seeing the behavior of his fellow citizens, in particular the feminine ones, Pygmalion realizes that he'd better sleep alone, and he took to art, chiseling a statue, and I quote Ovid here, more beautiful than any girl on earth, a miracle of ivory in a statue, so charming that it made him fall in love. Her face was life itself. In contrast to the expressionless Propaedes, Pygmalion's creation alludes to life. Therefore, he falls in love with his statue's possibility of life, derived from its ideal beauty, rather than the notion of ideal beauty itself. Quote, he stroked her arms, her face. Was she alive or not? He could not tell. End of quote. He brought her gifts and jewels, dressed her, and even slept with a statue on his bed. It is evident that Ovid's poetic narrative focuses more on Pygmalion's mutual life with his statue rather than on the latter's exquisite beauty. Critics such as Jane O'Sullivan read Ovid's tale as a man's illicit obsession with the surface beauty of an image of femininity. Similarly, for Julie Wask, it conveys man's enduring fantasy about fabricating the perfect female. A second reading of the myth, however, suggests that Pygmalion's inspiration is primarily triggered by his reaction to social decadence, and since he masters his art so ingeniously, he is also able to carve a woman of exceeding beauty. Both in the Pygmalion myth and the Stepford Wives, the intention of the transformation diverges from the bare pursuit of ideal femininity. Of ideal beauty, In the former case, the statue's transformation derived from Pygmalion's art marks the pursuit of a chaste lifetime companion, as well as the artist's practice of self-control. In the latter, the women's transformation into idealized homemaker fembots, derived from the husband's technological experimentation, marks on the one hand their uncontrollable sexual appetite, on the other, an almost hysterical, culturally threatened need for exercise of power and control over the feminine other. For Pygmalion and his Cypriot society, in contrast to the Stepford one, the benefit derived from his statue's transformation is collective. After he split Venus, she brought his statue into life, with the first proof of her living body being, quote, the pulse bit steering where he moved his hands, end of quote, and her flashing. That is, when she gained human expression and with it the moral capacity for modesty, which the Propaedes had relinquished. Venus blessed their wedding, and Pygmalion's wife gave birth to a girl, Paphos, after whom a new city was named. In the happy end of the tale, Pygmalion's artistry redeems and breaks Venus's curse, inaugurates a new place without signs of corruption, and brings to life the decent female individual to match him as the only decent male left according to the myth, and start a new generation. In addition, the new couple secures human continuum with the natural birth of their daughter, while the Cypriot society rests in safety after Pygmalion's reconciliation with the goddess and her promising prosperity and fecundity to be. For Johanna Eberhard, however, reality turns out to be quite grim as a new resident of the Stepford suburb. Joanna, a semi-professional photographer who is interested in the women's liberation movement, accepts her husband Walter's suggestion to leave the city so that, quote, she and Walter would find good friends and fulfillment. After her discovery of Stepford's sexist and stratified social reality at the expense of women, she realizes that in America, after 1949, a woman's fulfillment was still solely meant to be accomplished through the role of the housewife mother. In Levin's novel, The Cyborg Wife's Sameness bespeaks the absence of the American 50s female identity, if identity is primarily defined as the struggle for the completion of individuated goals once they are envisioned. Pygmalion took to art as a remedy for despairing over his state of loneliness. Fulfillment comes for Pygmalion when he completes his task through his special talent, healing himself as well as his community. On the contrary, for the Stafford women, the display of stereotypified femininity becomes a prerequisite for existence, as well as the sole identity of the female self. According to Betty Friedan, the core of the women's problem under patriarchy is not sexual, but a problem of identity, a role crisis. The feminine presence in society depends upon the man's idealization or disparagement of women based on the gender stereotypes of feminine appropriateness, such as domestication, submission, and sexual desirability. Hence, as Judith Montgomery concludes, literary as well as real-life heroines are frequently judged regarding the fulfillment or betrayal of that idealization as the fulfillment or betrayal of the self. In an ill-nurtured society, submission and sameness, or J.N. Eliot calls uncanny uniformity, are strongly interrelated. Uniformity is accomplished by massive submission to the social canon, which implants cultural mythologies in the consciousness of the oppressed as normality, or even worse, as part of the cultural tradition, described by Monique Wetting as the mark imposed by the oppressor. Likewise, Judith Butler's comment on the performative construction of gender within the material practices of culture underscores the perilous construction of the self according to social stereotypes in which individuality is entrapped. Taking this idea of constructed femininity to its technological extreme, the Stepford husband's obsession turns them into murderers and defilers of corpses, since they transform their wives into automatons to accomplish their horrific task. Conversely, Pygmalion's effort to fabricate a modest companion turns him into a creator not only of an artistic masterpiece, but also of life itself. The act of murder as the idealization of the women through technological methods by their husbands could be also read allegorically, that is, the extermination of the female individual identity. Yet Joanna refuses from the very beginning to submit to the male notion of the appropriate feminine model when she confesses to her husband, sex, yes, sexism, no, Stepford is out of step. Her opposition and perseverance highlights the significance of resistance, even on individual level, against the absurdity of a community in which peace and prosperity are accomplished only with the submission and uniformity of its members, the same way Pygmalion resists the wildly imbalanced society of Amethyst by retaining his self-discipline. In an attempt to oppose Stepford's murderous ideology, Joanna and Bobby Marco try to raise awareness among the Stepford women regarding their social absence, yet they are rejected. Joanna asks Carl Van Zandt, doesn't it bother you that the central organization here in Stepford, as far as community projects are concerned, is off limits to women? The cyber Carl answers, Ted's better equipped for that sort of thing than I am, and men need a place where they can relax and have a drink or two. Hence, in the husband's consciousness, murder takes the form of civil service rather than an abominable act under the excuse of the community's benefit. This allows them to act without the feeling of guilt or the fear of punishment. Nonetheless, by imposing their gender stereotypes upon their wives, even under the impression that they protect social cohesion, challenge it by depriving liberties and stealing lives. As Nora Campbell notes, the Stepford female cybers constitute robotic sex slaves akin to the hedonist propertives, yet the fembots are programmed to serve their masters on a quotidian scale, constituting thus glamorous, identical, post-human slave workers. The loss of singularity coexists with Joanna's characterization of the Stepford women as corpses in lifelike position, as well as with the Freudian term reanimation of the dead. Freud's statement concerns the significance of natural birth, which imports upon each one born an individual personality, in contrast to artificial creation that results in lifeless, mass-produced identical units. In the Pygmalion myth, the concept of singularity is celebrated through the natural birth of Paphos. Contrariwise, the Stepford cyborg's artificial creation features a lifeless community of sameness without individual goals that replace the human one. Thus, the suburb could be easily characterized as a ghost city in comparison to the newly flourished Cypriot society of self-controlled humans. Levin's sci-fi scenario is, of course, an allegory of the Sisyphean-like torture of the household chore due to their repetitive character, which had been the major reason for their loss of singularity, what Friedan calls a lack of human pattern. In contrast to Pygmalion's in contrast, to Pygmalion, whose art allows him an individual pattern and personal identity. Pygmalion accomplishes an artwork of flawless beauty as a consequence of his perseverance to remain unblemished by his fellow citizens' corruption. Similarly, the aspiration of the Americans to construct flawless communities which aimed to disengage them from the heady days of World War II gave rise to the post-war American suburban culture. The Stafford Society models a community as such, where men enjoy the unconditional services of their perfect slave-like wives without the fear of a reversal of roles, which could lead to a revolt and civil unrest, since the women are technologically controlled. For the construction of their pseudo-flawless community, though, the loss of human lives becomes a precondition, whereas for the amelioration of Pygmalion Cypriot society, the creation of new lives is required and achieved with his resistance to massive dissipation and his engagement in art. Similarly to Pygmalion, Joanna takes to art and aspires to create her personal pattern by improving her own image through photography. In reality, she struggles against a dehumanization and loss of singularity in the same manner Pygmalion, with his sculpture, struggles against loss of self-restraint and corruption. Joanna decides to quit her effort of the Stafford women's awareness regarding their rights and focus on photography. Quote, Sylvia was right. Photography was her work. To hell with the Stafford women. End of quote. Hence Levin, far from being misogynistic, offers a female Pygmalion model as the only healthy version of femininity in a horrifically compromised suburbia. In the Brian Forbes 1974 film version, Joanna is strangled with a pair of pantyhose by her double, a scene that may be read in a twofold manner. On the one hand, it confirms the feminist protest about barbarous rituals that, along with high heels, makeup, and a number of female ornaments, conceal female singularity. On the other, the hideous sin of murder, which, however, is not performed but cut, resonates Jean Baudrillard's comment on cloning as the end of the body, of the singularity called body, whose secret is precisely that it cannot be segmented into additional cells once it is extinguished. Thereupon, the human body, along with the human mind, cannot be substituted by mechanical parts, and apart from its secret that Baudrillard suggests, this also constitutes its proof of life, similar to the staring pulpit of Pygmalion statue, the moment she becomes a living woman. In the Frank Oz's 2004 film version, the reversal of the ending has Walter eventually not affected by the Men's Association Club and decides not to consent to Joanna's transformation. In addition, together they liberate the rest of the Stafford women that are former career women by altering a microchip in their brain from a central computer at the club, which is responsible for their transformation. In this film version, the mastermind is ironically a former scientist woman who decides to take revenge upon career women, as she had been cheated on by her husband due to her devotion to science. She therefore creates an idealized community with strict traditional gender division and no possibility of gender conflict. The ending illustrates the everlasting possibility of an escape from murderous technologies that would mark the commencement of a revolt and disruption of pseudolinearities such as Stepford's. In the end, Joanna confesses to Larry King. Now we know for sure it's not about perfect. Perfect doesn't work. Debunking in this way the deluded felicity created by artificial reality, as well as indicating that the false social cohesion it constructs is bound to be disrupted sooner or later. In the novel, before her transformation, Joanna demands to see if Bobby is able to bleed. If she bled, she said, I would think she was real, relating life with blood in the same manner Pygmalion feels his statue's pulse and observes her flashing in order to be persuaded of her birth. Contrarily, Dale Corder, the mastermind in the novel, who, like a modern evil Pygmalion, takes away the women's lives only to satisfy his pervasive Pygmalionist desires, is depicted as cold as ice, that is, cold-blooded, and Stepford as Zombieville. That establishes a correlation between the stone-like proprietors and the brutish men of the cursed city of amateurs with the Stepford impassive fembots and their murderous husbands with bestial instincts. To conclude, in the end of the novel, Joanna feels relieved when she discovers that they don't pass it on to their daughters, as she observes the Stepford girls growing like normal human beings. Thus, they need to reach a certain age for their transformation into cyborgs. Another assumption would be that the men wait until the women give birth, only to ensure the suburbs continue. The novel ends with the encounter of the newly transformed Joanna, unfortunately, and a new Stafford resident, Ruthann, a black rider who resembles the former Joanna. The scene recalls the beginning of the novel when Joanna was new to the city, insinuating Ruthann's upcoming transformation. In either case, for the women's transformation, birth and growth is a prerequisite, a hint that without life, everything remains static. However perfect artificiality may seem, it is a deluded perfection, as it is deprived of life. Instead, traces of true perfection, if such a thing exists, can be detected in moments of pain, intertwined with great joy that characterize procreation and creation, natural birth, and the making of art. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or if you have any queries regarding my bibliography, I will be happy, contact me and I will be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very passionate advocacy for real women, flesh and blood, not fembots.
Thank you.
Now I invite the audience of this session to offer their comments or their questions to Angela. The panelists may also do so if they wish to. It's interesting that we have a connection to the necrophilia mentioned by Anna previously, but now it is the Stepford husbands who are the necrophiliacs and not the great goddess. It's really an issue of power, isn't it? Not an issue of sex so much.
Yes.
But who controls the power? Okay, there's a comment from Eva Gilgrim can you read it, Angela?
Yes, of course.
Could you read it out loud, please?
Yes, of course. It comes from Eva. First of all, I would like to congratulate both Anna and Angela for these two highly interesting contributions. Thank you. Following up Anna's comment on the Platonic division between body and soul, I would like to ask her how the relationship between materiality and spirituality is negotiated in Upload. Is the soul favored over the body, or is the dialectic between the two depicted as far more complex? As for Angela, I found your addition of Butler's theory really promising, which is say that as Butler claims Pygmalions to totally abstain from the pleasures of flesh by constructing Galatea undermines his role as a proper male. In this sense, would you think that both the male creator and his female creation confirm the performative aspect of gender roles, even in the classical narrative? Yeah, it was a mistaken ability to totally abstain. Okay, that's why I got confused. Shall I answer? Would Anna like to answer first?
You answer first, and I answer then. So
okay. So yeah, thank you very much for your question. From first point of view, it seems that Pygmalion's male appropriateness, according to the ancient Greek tradition, clashes with Judith Butler's comments about performativity. But as I mentioned, it is according to the ancient Greek tradition. I believe that it doesn't have to do with gender. First of all, it has to do with power, as Professor Doku very accurately said. And to borrow her comment again from yesterday's session, it's about the love of the artist to its work of art, to work of art, the love that makes the inanimate thing alive. And I believe Ovid, with his myth, tries to places emphasis on the artist's love of his artwork more than his gender, his gender performativity, which according to the ancient Greek tradition, yes, is the ideal, but that comes as a result of his love for his artwork. That's why he drew the attention of Goddess in order for her to give life to his statue. Actually, his self-control and the fact that he managed to retain his self-control took him to his art as remedy. But then his passion and his love, he's actually, he becomes the ideal artist more than the ideal man, because my reading of the myth is far more romantic than other readings that are from a feminist perspective. So I believe, yes, it challenges more the artist than the man or the woman. And of course, it underscores the significance of natural birth, of the family, and of self-control. As we see in the myth, however, it's not only that women become fallen women, men also become fallen men. And that's why, and I think it's very quite important on the part of Ovid at this time to think of the fallen men as well as the fallen women. I hope I answered your question.
I can answer as well.
And Anna, would you like to take?
Yes, sorry, I'm stealing you just 1 minute. And thank you, Eva. I don't want to pronounce badly your surname, so I'm gonna stay at the Eva part. And thank you for your question. So the negotiation, so the spirituality is negotiated. So the soul is favored definitely over the body, in the meaning that at the really end of the series that we see, and at the beginning we see actually the body of Nathan like blowing up. So the body must die so that the memory, like meaning the soul, and there's clearly an overlapping between soul and memory, but psyche is a broad concept as well in the Greek mythology. But yes, the soul will survive and the memory will survive, but the body must die. So that's the main part. And actually it's really interesting because the part of the body that actually is blown up is his head, which is a component that has been studied by many people, especially by Yulia Kristeva in this book about severed head. And that's the point. You have to lose your corporality and your actual identity in the world so that your memory can be actually uploaded and put in a new avatar, which is your new afterlife. But your body is not actually there anymore. So clearly the dialectic is still a binary dialectic between soul and body, and still they are depicted not as complex as they can, for example, and it still favors like the soul and the memory part, even though we can discuss about boundaries between soul and memory, as actually, for example, it was conceived in the ancient mythology. I hope I've answered your question, and thank you very much for it.
Okay. Eva says, I think both of you covered me. Thank you. So that's nice. I don't know if we have any questions from Facebook on the chat that Antonella would like to send our way. But anybody else who would like to offer any comment or question?
I want to thank Angela. I have not a comment, not a question, that's still like it came up to my mind by listening to Angela, and thank you very much for your talk, because clearly like it binds very much with my research as well. And it came to my mind this trilogy by Nacho Cerda. I don't know if you know it, and it's the name is Aftermath, Awakening, and Genesis. And I think it may be really interesting. I think you may be interested in it because it begins with the awakening, which is like there is a necrophiliac assault, and the third one, which is Genesis, is basically an anti-Pygmalion story in which he falls in love. His wife dies, and he wants to make a statue of her, and as soon as the statue is perfect, he dies. So it's like is the contrary basically, and it may be interested for your research.
Sounds
just
very
from
interesting.
there.
Of course. I'll
but
check it.
really,
Thank you very much.
Really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Since there are no further questions and we have a few minutes still in our Q&A session, I would like to ask Angela something that came to me from my readings in American culture. In your reading of the Pygmalion myth, you place a lot of emphasis on the fact that of the turning of the statue into flesh, and not just flesh, but flesh that can procreate. And in that sense, not only fix its inanimate state, but fix society from its cursed to a benevolent state with continuity. But could we say that the switch of this naturalized schema, this inversion of the Stepford wives from being flesh and blood to turning into fembots, turning into this inanimate hard thing, is perversion of the Greek myth, or is it keeping in touch with another myth, which is the myth of American, let's say, exceptionalism, an American view to the future, as Jean Baudrillard has seen it, the idea that Americans think of themselves as people of the future, as people dependent on technology, going from the dirt to the stars, to infinity and beyond, and from flesh to cyborg. So is the Stepford wives really betraying the Greek myth of going from flesh to robot?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. It's really interesting. I don't believe that Ira Levin had the Pygmalion myth in his mind while he was writing the Stepford Wives. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. So I don't know if it is a perversion of the myth. Of course, metaphorically it is. That's why I drew the connection. But I think you're absolutely right. I think Levin certainly had in his mind this the perfect constructed American suburbia, as I mentioned, after World War II, and the construction of the American society as the perfect one, as a new Arya tribe, we could say, with everything, with a quotidian life where everything seemed perfect. Nothing would take them off this linearity, with clear gender roles, with kids growing to go to college, to university, and to receive institutionalized knowledge, with the wives embracing and hugging their husband the minute he came from work, because wives were supposed to stay at home and do the chores, the repetitive Sisyphean-like chores. And yes, I believe that there are references to American exceptionalism. Absolutely. And maybe Ira Levin foresaw what would happen in the future, this American imperialism that resulted in American exceptionalism. But the way it is presented and constructed in the suburbia, I think it's quite uncanny. It's quite deluded, because they advertise the perfectionism, whereas it's a pseudo a perfection society. It's absolutely full of flaws and full of things to reconsider, and absolutely stratified. So yes, I believe you're absolutely right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your response. And I think it is time to go to our last, but certainly not least speaker for this session, Alexandros Tsiachtanis. Alex is a graduate of the English Language and Literature Department of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, and is currently finishing up his MA in the program, The Greek Element in Anglophone Literature and Culture of the University of Athens, Greece. He has a very good knowledge of German and informatics, Global Intermediate Express, as you say here. And he's very much interested in sci-fi, has extensive knowledge of it. So he's really in his element right now, and we're going to benefit from that. So the subject of his talk today is Pandora's Box and Heroic Transformation in the Alien franchise. Alex, you have the floor, and you may upload your PowerPoint, please.
Okay, is everything visible? Is everything okay?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Doku, for introducing me to the conference. It has been a very interesting experience, and I have absolutely loved it so far. And most of all, I want to thank the organizers of the conference themselves, since they have done an amazing job, even under these particular circumstances, of organizing the whole thing. It has been a very interesting experience, definitely. The title of my presentation is Pandora's Box and Heroic Transformation in the Alien Film Franchise. Let's start. The Alien Tetralogy is a popular series of science fiction and horror movies that debuted with the original film Alien in 1979. It is considered to be one of the most popular series of films in both genres due to its influence as a whole, since even after 50 years, the franchise is still popular with new media. Apart from the science fiction and horror conventions, though, which are still enough to make the films beloved on their own, the appeal lies with the themes presented within the movies. The movies themselves portray a plethora of human characters encountering and fighting against a powerful extraterrestrial monstrosity, the titular being the alien, often resulting in tragedy and death for the human characters. In the center of it all stands Ellen Ripley, the main character, and who is also the adversary of the alien, of the creature itself. Ripley encompasses many of the traditional heroic attributes, such as bravery, resourcefulness, unwillingness to compromise her values, and even self-sacrifice. What makes the struggle even more difficult, though, is the fact that the alien being is highly sought after by Ripley's employers, the powerful corporation known as Weyland-Yutani, usually referred to as just the company. The company believes that the creature could be tamed and used for the purposes of warfare and for the creation of biological weapons. The ones who are tasked with performing the job of finding the alien creature are members of lower social classes, such as soldiers, workers, prisoners, and even miners, among others, the ones deemed expendable both by society and the capitalist status quo in general. The particular humanist and social themes that arise as a result could be considered universal and constitute one of the main reasons for the popularity of the franchise. It also has to be noted, however, that apart from the social themes, the movies themselves include allusions to ancient Greek myth as well, with the film of Pandora and to an extent, the myth of Prometheus being the most important ones. The connection between the movies and the ancient myth is entirely intentional, as the conflict between the company and the lower social classes mirrors in a way the conflict between the Titans, particularly that of Prometheus, with Zeus and the Olympians in general. Also, the various social classes who rise up as a result of this particular conflict represent, in a metaphorical sense, of course, the hope that is eventually found within Pandora's mythical box. On the other hand, the evils unleashed by the box represent the alien creatures themselves, the central antagonists of the series. To start with the original myth, first and foremost, Hesiod, the renowned ancient Greek poet and mythographer who lived between 750 to 1650 BCE, has cataloged, and who is also the author of the Theogonian works and days, two works which are very important for our analysis today, has cataloged many of the ancient stories in these particular works and remains a key figure to this day in the world of mythological analysis. The myth of the Pandora's box, as well as that of Prometheus, can be found in both Theogony and the works and days, as well as in Plato's Protagoras, in the latter case of Prometheus. First of all, according to mythical tradition, Prometheus and Epimetheus are responsible for the creation of animals and of humanity, including the handling out of the traits and means of self-preservation, as Socrates points out in the Platonic dialogue. However, the handling out of the characteristics was not equal, since humankind was left with no means to protect itself. As a result, Prometheus resorted to stealing the fire from the gods, which led to his eventual punishment by Zeus. In the latter work of Hesiod, in Works and Days, apart from the standard way that Prometheus was punished, as we already know, the tale of stealing the fire and being chained to Mount Caucasus so that he had his liver eaten every single day, Prometheus manages to fool and outwit Zeus with the story of the bones, as we see in the myth. As an act of revenge, Zeus swiftly creates Pandora in an effort to take revenge. The body is created by Hephaestus, under the behest of Zeus, of course, by using clay. This already forms an interesting connection to the film series, as clay is associated with the earth, and the alien itself is made of silicon, another element associated with the earth. Athena and Aphrodite, among other gods and goddesses, present gifts to the newly created woman, such as necklaces and golden jewels, hence the name Pandora, which translates to roughly as all gift. Pandora is constructed in such a way so that she can act upon the will of Zeus, which makes her essentially a puppet and a trap for humankind, before she is given to Epimetheus, the impudent brother of Prometheus, whose name literally means afterthought, to be his wife. Zeus also gives the box as a present to Epimetheus, who didn't take Prometheus's warning seriously enough to not accept anything from Zeus, as it could potentially be harmful to all humankind. Up to that point, humans had lived free from disease and toil. However, everything changed when Pandora opened the box that was gifted to herself and Epimetheus, releasing all the evils contained within it. From this point onwards, humankind became cursed, with only hope remaining within the box as a form of salvation. The curse essentially is semi-eternal. Humanity keeps sinning as a result of the evils within the box and constantly falls further into chaos with each passing generation, as Hesiod points out in his work, in a constantly and ever-growing vicious cycle. We can infer from the aforementioned tale that the myth essentially is a cautionary tale. The message is that curiosity and reckless thoughts or actions could potentially have far-reaching and unforeseen consequences, as Pereira and Lopez point out in their work Machine Ethics, From Machine Revivals to the Machines of Morality. Prometheus' gift of foresight and struggle against the Olympian gods is a battle against a cruel, even tyrannical and uncaring status quo, similar to how Marx envisioned the struggle of the workforce against the capitalist forces. Hesiod presents the Olympian gods as absolute authorities who assume the license to do as they please, even at the expense of innocent individuals, just because of their higher social status, an act of entitlement invoking a might is right ideology. The social hierarchy is also coupled by a gendered hierarchy. Pandora is the agent of divine judgment, which resets everything back to its original natural order, following the punishment of the parties responsible for the transgression. But also, according to the Panofskis, the first mischief, a forbidden box out of which comes every evil that can affect the flesh. She is the mother of all women in the sense, a misogynistic view which is highly similar to the way Eve is presented in the Bible. As a result, in both present-day retellings, as a result, in both ancient and modern retellings of the myth, there is a great distrust towards the figure of Pandora in a misogynistic sense, which can also be viewed as a fear of sexuality and procreation, as the Panofskis point out in their work, and this is generally a view that is prominent throughout the tetralogy of the film series. By extension, there is a lack of forethought when it comes to handling the alien being in the film series, as we have already mentioned, which is an allusion to Prometheus and Epimetheus. The company, in its effort to acquire the alien specimen, does not include nor provide any means of protection for the ones it assigns the tasks to. This results in countless human casualties and destruction in all 4 of the films. In Alien, the entire crew of the spaceship Nostromo is wiped out, apart from Ripley, the sole survivor, and millions of tons of ore cargo are lost forever. In Aliens, an entire colony and an expensive moon base, as well as a regiment of colonial marines, are decimated, and in Alien 3, the same tragic fate is repeated with a colony of miners and prisoners. As per tradition, in Alien Resurrection, multiple innocent people and prisoners are kidnapped and used as a means for the procreation of the alien species. The twist compared to the original myth, however, is that the company represents both Epimetheus and Zeus in its hubris, in the sense that the organization, the company, shows complete inability to plan ahead and to calculate any and all potential dangers that could possibly arise, but they are also the ones who set the cruel status quo and the ones who victimize, as Zeus did in the myth. They are those who believe they can manipulate every situation to their advantage, deeming human life as expendable, but end up imperiling the very Earth and all the other planets that they operate on. Just like Zeus, the company is cruel and petty in its exploits, in juxtaposition to the workers who are similar to humanity in the Hesiodic myth. This particular act of corporate greed, which is a central theme in the series, apart from punishing others for lesser, insignificant, and even imagined offenses, is also similar to Zeus's wrath in the fact that it ends up diminishing humanity in some shape or form. In Hesiod's version of the myth, as the ages pass, the people keep falling from grace. Similarly, in the films, as the years keep on passing, the company's employees become increasingly more abject and exploited. The transgressions performed against them become crueler as the films go by. Furthermore, the attempt to bring the xenomorph back to Earth in the films can be viewed as a twisted theft of the fire from the myth. Fire for humankind was Prometheus' ultimate boon and an important reason for why the Titan was actually revered in ancient times, especially in the city of Athens, and the reason he was assigned the moniker friend of humankind. However, in the films, the boon is only for the select few of the financial and corporate elite, in a sense returning to and maintaining a privileged Olympian cadre. Thus, the divine present is also twisted so that only the dangerous element remains for humanity. It is a very ironic case of playing with fire, since in the story of Prometheus, fire indeed burned, but also offered knowledge to humanity. On the contrary, there is no such potential in the films, as everyone who comes to the close proximity of the alien species is destroyed. Similarly, Pandora's name also becomes ironic, as in both myth and the films, her gift is highly destructive and even deadly. The idea that the box contains something evil within it, ready to be unleashed, is expressed in the film series through counterparts to Pandora. This is extremely evident in the case of the company-controlled androids, who represent a perfect example of a connection between the myth. They are a technological marvel in a sense, hyper-intelligent and can perform most tasks. They can even pass out as regular humans without standing out. They are widely used and sought after, their popularity echoing Pandora's charm as the first woman, who was also a seductive symbol in a sense. However, just like the mythological female figure, they do not possess a will of their own. They were engineered with the sole purpose of performing specific tasks for the company, and they are completely unable to resist their programming, as evidenced by the traitorous android Ash in the original film, whose programming him ordered the robot to protect the extraterrestrial organism at all costs, and furthermore, his underlying sexual frustration for Ripley caused him to malfunction when he developed emotions close to those found in humans. Ash, throughout the film, never helped the crew of the Nostromo. On the contrary, he is actually the main reason for its destruction. He was essentially a catalyst for the cruel encounters between the alien and the humankind, the first in the series, therefore the one who began the downward spiral, mirroring Pandora of the original myth. Furthermore, in both the film and the myth, we can see an element of technophobia as a result, as pointed out by Pereira and Lopez in their work, as well as artificial intelligence that exists outside humanity and causes problems, drawing yet another connection between us and Pandora of the Greek myth. These are the main androids of the series. Most of them either hide a secret or they are highly treacherous in a sense, especially us in the top left. And David in the bottom right corner, while the other two hold secrets of their own or cause the other characters to be highly suspicious towards them as a result. When it comes to the mythological box itself, the alien facehugger eggs form the most obvious counterpart to the franchise. These particular eggs, apart from being box-like themselves in a shape, which is a very interesting imagery, furthering the connection between the two stories, open only when human characters come into close proximity. They unleash an arthropod being that forcefully impregnates other people with an embryo, essentially a parasitic life form. They are the beings that start the path to death and destruction. In that sense, they are essentially the evil in the box, but they also represent Pandora's femininity in a subtle way. Through the forced penetrative impregnation, which is an allegory of rape, of course, they represent monstrous sexuality. In contrast to humankind in the Alien film series, the antagonistic alien, with its parasitic reproduction, the appearance of the fertilizing facehuggers is similar to a vagina with a penis and a painful birthing method which follows the impregnation of said species. Through the very well-known image of the chest burster, as seen in the original movie, is, as I have already mentioned, both an allegory for rape and destructive sexuality, but also in general eliminates all of the distinctions between men and women of the crew by invoking cultural anxieties regarding the subversion of male power, as pointed out by Gallardo and Smith. Yeah. Furthermore, the phallic imagery of the alien species is entirely intentional in a sense, as the person, the individual, the artist who drew the species, H.R. Giger, is very well known for his phallic and sexual imagery in his work. Procreation, in a sense, becomes twisted.
Excuse me, I need to remind you that you have 1 minute left.
Procreation becomes twisted, and there is a fear of sexuality in the franchise as a result. Pandora's femininity, when carried over, transforms into something dark and monstrous. The mythological figure is seen as the mother of evil in a misogynistic fashion. The rape victim is debased as a result. Even the creature's life cycle invokes ideas of monstrous femininity, as the eggs are birthed by the alien queen, a monstrous hive matriarch. This particular element, the aliens and Pandora, of course, are this element of the forceful impregnation of the human characters in the series stems from Laureau's interpretations of Pandora. as we've already mentioned, with the idea of dangerous sexuality. It has become destructive, something that has to be avoided at all costs, sexuality, of course, mirroring the myth charter distrust towards Pandora, but also the company's use of its workers' bodies as incubators for its own nefarious profit-making schemes. After all, if the creature can procreate quickly, then that means more money for the company in the long run. Furthermore, rather fittingly, the idea of the mythical box is present in the staging of the film. The encounters between humanity and alien life in the franchise take place in dark and enclosed spaces, including spacecrafts, prisons, maze-like corridors, and ancient labyrinthine temples, never in open spaces. Just like in a box, darkness is omnipresent and the environment's narrow and disorienting, surrounded by suffocating and hostile space. Here we can see eggs from the film series, which highly resemble boxes in both the way they open, the face hugger with both the vaginal and penis imagery, the alien queen, the monstrous hive matriarch, and of course the dark and disorienting corridors of the film series, as well as the stalker, the alien in the dark. Stalker, of course, bearing a strong sexual imagery, as it has become well known in popular culture. There is an idea, however, that has not been brought up yet, the hope within the box, and to analyze it, Ripley's heroic journey should be explained, along with the role that various minorities play within the franchise. Therefore, the Marxist elements of the film should also be presented. First of all, the main character of the series, Lieutenant Ripley, encompasses many of the usual heroic qualities found in a plethora of tales, such as the desire to do the right thing, to face impossible odds, such as to help others, and even the willingness of self-sacrifice as evidenced in Alien 3, with her fall into a furnace in an attempt to kill herself along with the alien queen embryo gestating within herself. She is a feminist symbol first and foremost, forming a contrast to the alien beings, particularly to the monstrous alien queen. She's a powerful female figure with a military rank that slowly rises to leadership status due to her experience as others around her keep dying. As a result, various political and social imperatives are mixed in Ripley. For example, in the sequel, she becomes a surrogate mother to Newt, forming yet another contrast between the alien queen, the monstrous mother. Furthermore, Ripley challenges the company's domineering patriarchal instincts, and she is heard and remembered as a result of her actions. Her power, therefore, is used for the general greater good, like that of Prometheus, unlike Pandora. Also, just like the Titan figure, Ripley shows foresight when battling the alien. In the first film, she deduces that the facehuggers are dangerous, not allowing the crew to enter the ship. She finds out the truth behind the events, and she manages to trap and kill the creature in the end of the film, and she is the only one to survive multiple encounters against it. In the following movie, she refuses to trust the company, understanding their motives and not trusting them to save her, as they promised. Furthermore, the juxtaposition between Ripley and the alien queen can easily be summed up as destructive femininity as opposed to the inspiring, nurturing one of Ripley. The encounter with us...
I will have to ask you to summarize the remainder of your argument, Alex, since you've already exceeded by much your time. So please summarize.
Yes, I can summarize it pretty much quickly. I have already mentioned how Ripley forms a dichotomy between the alien queen. Ripley herself redeems Pandora. She does not bring evil, unlike the mythological figure. She follows the hero's journey in a sense, but she deconstructs it, showing that she herself, as well as every one of the abject social classes, can also become a hero, giving a Marxist sense in the idea of heroism as opposed to the standard heroism of the ancient times, which was about noble birth, etc. In that sense, Ripley and her fellow fighters become Marxist heroes. The status quo itself is designed in a way that creates downtrodden individuals. The protagonists, of course, belong to the lower social classes. The company forms the status quo. Subject objects are consciously created and separated, and fighting the alien is an allusion for fighting against corporate monsters. However, interestingly enough, in the myth, Zeus is said to be defeated in the end of the myth in the far future. Similarly, rather comically, in Alien Resurrection, the fourth movie of the franchise, the company no longer exists, as it has rather hilariously been bought out of all things by a supermarket chain. The ones who fight, not the basic, the cheap in a sense, outfit worn by the protagonists of the film. Here we have the prisoners and the miners on the left, and the soldiers in the right from the fourth film. Notice how, yet again, throughout all four films, we deal with people of lower social classes. Okay, do I have enough time for a movie clip? Okay, I will have it played.
I don't think we have enough time for a movie clip, so maybe you should wrap up right now.
Okay. I'm pretty much done in a sense, yes. I didn't
All right, thank
say
you very
everything
much.
that was on my mind. I thought I had more time.
No, this went way beyond the allotted 20 minutes. So even though we do have, technically speaking, time in this session because there are only 3 speakers, it would always be good under any circumstance to keep to the prescribed 20 minutes or whatever your time slot is. All right, now I just got word from Antonella Lipscomb that Facebook is not working right now. So we will probably not be having any questions coming from that front. However, at this point, I would invite the rest of the panelists who are watching us via Zoom and the attendees of this session to offer any questions or comments they have for Alex's presentation. So please.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Alex, congratulations on your presentation.
I didn't read out everything that I wanted to say, though.
Okay.
I am disappointed.
No, okay, don't be. I'd like to ask you about something you said about Pandora. You said that she's regarded as a seductive symbol. So you presented her as such. So I was wondering that wasn't in a way as a character, as a female character, Pandora, I mean, maltreated and victimized by the gods, since on the one hand they constructed the perfect woman, on the other they gave her curiosity and a box in order to turn her into an agent of destruction. In reality, was Pandora given an actual choice, or was she divinely deceived? So I would very much like to hear your
opinion. My opinion, yeah. Thank you, Angela, for your interesting question. In my opinion, Pandora was deceived in a sense. She wasn't given agency of her own, and she had to follow essentially a programming. You can even claim that she's an artificial AI program in a sense, imprinted upon her by Zeus in order to act out his petty revenge in a sense. This forms an allusion to the androids of the film, which largely do not have agency of their own, and they exist as agents of the company to carry out its will rather than helping fight the alien.
Thank
Did
you.
I answer your question?
Yes,
Or?
yes, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much for this question, Angela. If there's anybody else who would like to offer a comment in the chat or any of the panelists would like to contribute, you may do so now. I'm not seeing any activity, so I will take this. Metka says trying to check out various approaches to Pandora. And she's given us a link. You might want to copy that link and hold on to it for later perusal. Usually Metka's, let's say, tidbits of cultural information are worth pursuing. And I have a question for Alex. I can, the main theory through which you approached alien was Marxism. And as you probably know, Marxism has contributed very strong insights in post-colonial theory, post-colonial studies as well. However, if I were to take a post-colonial perspective and flip your argument a little bit about the miners and the soldiers and the prisoners being the downtrodden Lubenproletariat, right? And I see them instead as the imperialist, capitalist, colonialist enterprise of the Earth Company going on to these other planets to exploit them. Isn't the xenomorph really a positive figure, sort of like the native Caliban that sparks the Promethean spark of resistance, infiltrating and mixing the godly privilege of the colonizers' bodies, which are the stronger, they are the inviolate ones, with its own, let's say, colonizing them back with its own DNA. I was wondering how your Marxist reading would fare in, if we see it, if we add a post-colonial prism to it.
Thank you for your interesting question. I have actually thought of that as well once preparing the paper and the PowerPoint, but I've come to the conclusion that the alien, rather than representing a Marxist element in its recolonizing the human species, is entirely different in the sense that it creates distraction. It only liberates the social classes that are abject by the company only in an ironic sense, due to the company's own shortcomings and lack of foresight. They essentially create their own distraction, which allows the human subjects to rebel against the status quo. So in an ironic sense, it does end up becoming a good thing in the end. But that was not the intention.
All right, thank you very much for your response.
Did I understand your question right?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, did I answer your...
Yes, you did, thank you. Is there any other comment or question anybody would like to offer or pose? Metka is saying Lara Croft, Tomb Raider 2001. So that's another Pandora myth, I presume. Metka, would you like to comment on that one, the connection that you're trying to establish? Go ahead.
Hi.
Let me see.
Good work, everybody. And excellent teacher. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Well, Lara Croft is all about Pandora's Box. It's now the third sequel. It's like a franchise, and it is something that really would add to your perception. And I would say, as a teacher, if you don't mind, you know, if I could offer an advice on how to fit your presentation within 20 minutes, the whole presentation about Pandora and the histories from the Greek mythology, that was the process that you underwent in order to understand where to fit your reflection in. But for the audience, this is what we don't need to do anymore. We don't need to present every single element from the origins of the myth. And that would, you know, that takes a lot of time. We all ail in that direction. And then if you just make it very quick, make some references, tell people where to go check out, what they might want to check out if they're interested, then you go on with your own development, with your own argument, and then you don't run out of time, if that's something that you can accept as an advice.
Thank you very much for your feedback.
Most welcome. Wishing you all the best.
All right, thank you very much. And I guess that's the benefit of having mixing younger scholars and more seasoned scholars in a conference. We learn from each other in fruitful ways within this whole academic environment. And anybody else would like to offer a comment or a question for any of our panelists? We can just open the floor to questions all around.
Okay, there is a question by Eva Gildirim.
Okay, I have a question from Eva Gildirim.
I would like to ask you, she says, how would you perceive the hybrid baby in Alien? Would you examine it as inherently evil or as a hybrid new organism, a kalon kakon, like in Hesiod's narrative? Actually, that was an element that I didn't manage to reach, which I very much intended to. It is not in the Alien hybrid baby. Do you mean the hybrid in Alien Resurrection or the alien organism that bursts out in the original movie? I assume you mean the one in Alien Resurrection, the fourth movie. I see it like a kalon kakon in a sense, since it is the one that rejects the evil matriarchy of the alien queen, choosing instead the positive femininity of Ripley 8, the clone, and it itself rips the alien queen's head apart, killing the creature and saving the last few survivors. So it is definitely a kalon kakon in a Hesiodic sense.
That was indeed a very ambivalent scene in Alien Resurrection, which for me is the best Alien movie. It was superbly done. Because I think we were driven to feel for the alien baby, for the hybrid daughter, especially the way she went to Ripley and nuzzled her and cooed to her, and she behaved like a baby. So we understand the necessity of having her killed, but it was also a hard decision and a harsh scene. It's interesting to see whether we can transfer. I was wondering if you could comment that transfer on that scene, the hope politics. Because it's interesting that the way the Ripley clone kills the baby is by opening a hole and everything escapes, in a sense, like recreating the scene of the opening of the Pandora's box, except now we're opening it out to space. What did you think of that scene in the Pandora box?
It was definitely an opening of a box, in a sense, that it was sucked out in the outer space, but I believe the main way that the myth, that the hope within the box is represented in the franchise are the workers themselves who rise up and fight against the status quo, as I have already mentioned. since they managed to defeat the alien threat and end the company's reign.
So no room for babies in the class struggle, huh? Okay, I guess Jacob Lindström is offering a comment there. Yeah, that scene left a mark in my soul. I hear you. So unless there are any other comments or anybody who'd like to ask something, I guess we can start our break early, go get a well-deserved cup of coffee or tea, or whiskey neat for those of you that feel they need it. And thank you very much, all of you panelists, Anna, Angela, Alex, thank you so much. All the people who attended this session for your comments and your presence. Thank you, Antonella and Adrian, for all your help and supervision and being our guardian angels. And I'll see you hopefully during our last session for this very, very exciting, very interesting conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you,
Thank you very much
Christina.
for everything.
And a kiss to the little cat.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much for everything. Goodbye.